Hello everyone, Jimmy, video game addict. Um, Grateful to be here, grateful to share with you guys. Hopefully I do an okay job at it. I grew up with video games in my hand. And at the beginning, like when I was young, I would like finish all my school assignments and I would make sure everything is good just so I could go home and game. I was kind of with a poor family, so video games were like a way of adventure and fun and like my reward. Some degree, I think at that time, I don't think it was addiction. I think it was just, part of like my growing up and it was something I was really like happy with. But even like when I was young and I, didn't think myself an addict, like there'd be times I would want to do, something more. I would want to like, be involved with drawing or playing an instrument or doing like creative like engineering projects. But like every time I'd have that like desire to do those things, it was so much easier to default to video games. And so I grew up doing that. And then as things basically continued in my life, like especially like from like I don't know, like a young kid to teenager, like that was the only other hobby I had that wasn't related to school or like having a job or playing sports. Like I just kind of gave up on everything else. Like my life was still manageable, like life was still good. And I had a lot of friends that played and I connected with them. But like by the time I turned like 18, I'd already kind of started to realize that like there was something more there. And like when I was like 18, 19 was when I first tried to like quit. When I first said, you know what, I don't like this gaming thing was great as I grew up and I got started in life, but I want to try to live my own life. I want to try to do my own thing. And so I go to college and like the first time I tried to quit, I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna have any type of console game. Like my freshman year, like it went pretty well. I didn't have a console game. I had all sorts of new stimulants as far as like social lives and freshman in college and doing all this cool stuff, doing these real life things. And like I had all these like kind of crappy jobs to help me pay for school and like things were good. I would then normally, spend money on like mobile games and it was like more money than I normally would and mean to spend. I wish I had that stuff for life. And like, there's times I would like procrastinate with my like schoolwork. I would spend hours just doing something that wasn't school, normally gaming. And I just was like, but you know what, this is okay, this is whatever. But I was like, I need more discipline in my life. So I actually ended up joining like the reserves right after my freshman year of college. I go into active duty. I wasn't even allowed to have a phone then. And it was actually a really, really cool part of my life as far as just like a year, I was living life like 110%. I wasn't gaming and I was like so satisfied with life. There was like I would say like the first thing I bought as soon as I got done with active duty was I went out and basically bought a handheld system. But that was a red flag to me. That was like, oh, this is a reward for all the hard work I'm doing. And I really wasn't too bad. Like I wasn't bad with it. I really played it. And I'm out in active duty for like another year. I get done with that and I continue my contract in the reserves and I want to go back to college. In between starting college and getting off active duty, for the most part, like I had these like ambitions of wanting to like kind of like, build like a business and do really good, do really well. Instead, I basically spent playing video games. I got back to college and all the issues I had before the Marine Corps were still there. And by the time I like started my college semester, like I had this extra thing of like fulfilling my military duties. I still had like these crappy jobs I didn't care about. My studies were getting harder. And I was spending more and more time basically trying to escape my life into games. And that basically continued for about 3, 4 years. Always basically getting like schoolwork done at the very last minute, like never having like my gear like completely ready to go for these like field ops we'd have. Like I would like wouldn't go to like my training center until like 2, 3 a.m. in the morning because I was like wasting time and I was playing games, I was doing this other stuff, doing anything I could to escape it. By the time that I got to my last year of school, like I ended up with severe depression. And my first semester of my fourth year, I was spending 12 to 16 hours in bed, like not asleep, like just in bed. And I did that for about 6 weeks. And like I just remember just just being so done with life. And like I just had completely escaped in some combination of like YouTube and pornography and playing games and just not wanting to interact with the world at all. I was about to fail out of like this, like I was so upset myself, like I'd basically spent 5 years getting this degree and made all these sacrifices, like everything up to this point, and I just couldn't basically stop playing games. I couldn't just stop wanting to escape from the situation instead of dealing with it. And I almost failed out. I did fail like 2 classes that semester, and I'm like, I wasn't even sure if I was going to go back to finish school. I basically talked to some medical professionals. They helped me with like medication, and I kind of finished the semester. But like my second semester, even though I was going to class, I was still spending 2 to 6 hours every morning playing games. Like the game playing did not go away. And it just was like it gone from like, when I was a kid, I did everything I was supposed to do. I wore myself with games at the end of the day. Now it was like to start my day, I had to basically play games. I had to like get that fixed, and I would always be like negotiating with myself. Well, I'd be like, oh, I'm only going to play this game. I'm only going to play it for this amount of time. And I would never stick by it. And then I'd be like, oh man, I wish I'd spent, the best part of my day doing that. And then, I mean, just by, I still ended up failing another class, and that was the whole thing. And long story short, like on that, eventually, like a year later, I managed to get my degree. I tried to get started my career in the tech space, and it was kind of the same thing where it was like, am I going to game this morning, or am I do like stuff to build my life forward? Basically, that like it was a struggle. It was a struggle for years, but eventually, like I started to gain traction in my career. Like things in my life started to get better. I was able to stop gaming, but like I like tracked my time with gaming. Like I just wrote it down. Like it was like literally I would put it like on my calendar. But I spent 2 hours gaming the day. I spent 4 hours gaming the day. I spent 6 hours gaming the day. And eventually it like cut down. So it was like, I can spend, it was always basically the choice of like I can either basically live my real life and live real adventure and have a great time with that and all the struggles and challenges, or I can escape into this game where winning or losing doesn't matter. And eventually, I got really good at this one game, and I was actually had the opportunity, like I was playing at some of the highest levels of that game, and I was like I was playing with the best people in the industry, and I was thinking to myself, I could basically I could try to become a professional at this game, or I can try to have a real career in real life. I just kind of like decided for myself, like, was what would I be happy with at the end of my life? Being a professional gamer or having like a professional career outside of gaming. And I just knew that just like in the bottom of my heart that I would have deep regret if all I did with my life was play a game. And eventually that I quit gaming altogether. Like as far as it went 2-1, and then I just wasn't gaming. And my career went really, really well for about 3 years. During this transition period, because I was basically just gaming and I was just doing my career stuff, my like longtime college girlfriend, like this is like a woman that I was friends with back in high school. And throughout college, she always supported me. And that like by this point in the story, I was actually like living, like I was housing for her grandmother's house, and I wasn't talking to her for like 18 hours a day because I basically couldn't have my phone in the house with me where I was doing my computer work, because I would more than likely spontaneously game than I would do the work that I was trying to do to build my career. That way we could get a house and move forward together. And I just couldn't like I at this point had completely isolated myself from friends, from family. Like there's nothing basically that mattered to me besides my career and gaming. Like those were the only two things. Like probably my dog for third, but that was it. Like no other human connection was like important to me. And eventually, she like I think she did the right thing. She broke up with me. And I still didn't, I knew I had a problem, and I thought I could, I can just brute force will it through. Like I can make this work. I can make my life work. I don't need anyone else. Even it was months after that, I finally quit gaming, and I'm like, I got very serious with my career. My career took off. It was really great. At one point, I literally had to I had to take my smartphone and I smashed it on the porch of my buddy's house. Literally, like his like 6-year-old kid was like almost coming out, so I could like hurt his little kid when I was like just in like moment of passion. It's just something I regret, but it's just like the control that thing had over me. It just made me burn like inside, like in all the worst ways. And I got this dumb phone. I actually had a dumb phone for 2 years just so I wouldn't have a handheld system the game like accessible to me. And my career took off and it was really good. And it was really good for about 3 years or so. I basically would get super stressed with work. At this point, the only thing I cared about was work at that point. What really sucked was when things got rocky at work, I would still end up having these times where I would basically binge on a game for like a week, 2 weeks, like just saying F the entire world, like nothing else matters. I still had a problem, but I wasn't reaching out to anyone for help. I was just like, I'm gonna brute force, like this is wrong, but there's nothing I can do about it. And I go by another 2 years and I'm living by myself at this point. And I'm in a position meant for someone with like 8 to 10 years experience because the only thing I've cared about for my life for the last like 4 years was like my career, gaming, and my dogs. Like, and that's like the only good thing. After that, I hit another really rocky part in my career. Basically, instead of like finding ways to resolve it, as things got worse and worse, I basically turned to gaming more and more to escape the hardships of my life. Basically, near the end of it, I was almost homeless. And this was like, I was like gaming for like big majorities of the day. I was about to lose the house, like, my living expense. I was almost homeless. Like, I basically didn't have money to eat. I didn't have gas in my car. And like everything was falling apart. And I just would just like kind of lay and just play games. And like, it just really sucked. With that rocky part, eventually I had to move back to my parents. And what happened from there, like what should have been like 3 months of unemployment turned into like a year of unemployment, where I just kind of just was feeling sorry for myself. At some point, I had this really crappy job, and I'd moved out of my parents and I was living in a tent, and I just did this really crappy job, and basically like lived in this tent, played games, absolutely hate my life, and just extend such a long period. And then eventually I ended back at the parents' house. From there, I ended up like sitting on my parents' couch, absolutely amazed with my life. I was playing this game, like the same mobile game that's basically been the main like protagonist of the story. And I was just laying there on this game. I had no joy at all. I was just going mechanically going through the steps of it. Like it just really sucked. And I just had no joy, no like anything. I'm like, I have to deal with this gaming problem the rest of my life. I'd been fighting it for a decade at this point. I thought there was nothing else I could do about it. And that's when I finally start showing up to GA meetings. Like I'd done everything I humanly could under the sun by myself to try to do this, and there's nothing worked. And showing up to the GA meetings, like it took a while for things to get better. As far as for the first 2 months I showed up to GAA, I was like still playing games. Somehow to convince myself that I wasn't a gaming addict, I guess. I don't know, like where I could game and like these meetings felt like a waste of time. And it was just like, man, this sucks. And like I'm playing games, I'm wasting time playing games, I'm wasting time going to this recovery thing. And I got really, really, really blessed that there's this one guy that he showed up to a same couple of the meetings that I did, and he would like kind of talk to me afterwards, and and he was a cool guy and listened to my story, and like I was so done with everything, but he just like would listen to me like rant, kind of like you guys are now. So, and he, during the parking lot hours, he's just like, hey, just come to this meeting and talk to me, and let's just read the big book. That's all he asked me to do. Let's read the big book. It was only a week or two of reading the big book, and I was like, you know what, I'm really gonna try to quit now. I'm gonna try, and I was successful for about 2 days, and then I wasn't. And it was like just one of the hardest things I'd ever like tried to quit. It was literally like trying to like, like how breathing becomes one of the necessary like forms of like, or eating like becomes like that's how like gaming had gotten to me. And just quitting for 2 days was so hard, but I was able to do it for 24 hours. I was like, yes. The next big one was I managed to get through a weekend. Like a weekend without gaming was just literally impossible. And just reading the big book with the guy and just hanging out with him. And like he was like rating the recommendation, like, why don't you try find a home meeting? And that worked out really well for me. And I got through weekend one, I got through weekend two, and then I relapsed again. So not ideal. So I'm like, 10 weeks into the program now. And I've been like sober all of like, 16 days. But like I was trying. And I was really making an effort, and the tech stuff that I started, like I started to work hard at it again. I started to like kind of believe, and like I'd been jaded against my spiritual higher power for basically years now. And I was so angry and resentful that I had tore my life apart, and it was somehow it's like its fault, his fault, however you want to say it. I was it like look at the responsibility of all the things I did to actually caused it. So anyway, so finish that. Like all my efforts were rewarded with me, and I had this great, amazing job opportunity. Like the best, like I had to do 10 interviews for this company. It was a 2 month interview process, but they like gave me a job. Like they gave me a job like last year, like November 15th. And I was just like in awe. Like this was like the best job I've ever gotten. And just like I was scared to death of effing it up again due to just like get like addiction. So like the fear of that, working with the program, basically my Tuesday home group became my home group. I haven't missed like a Tuesday throughout everything in over a year now. That same like fellow that was silly enough to talk to me after the meeting, he became my sponsor. And we just started with questions with step work, started working through step one, answering questions for it. And I got spiritually unstuck for the first time in like 5, 6 years, which was like awesome. Getting spiritually unstuck, having things kind of moving the right way, and just like honestly, that fear of things going terrible again, that helped me keep pushing me forward. And like, the 4 months after I quit gaming, nothing felt good. Nothing was fun. I went to work and had satisfaction at work, but like the first like 3 to 4 months I wasn't gaming, like things were still not good. Like things had like felt worse, like, but they were real. And that was awesome. And I did feel things again. I felt things for real life. And I just kind of kept my head down. And I kind of used work as a substitute. And me and my sponsor, we defined like my bottom line of like for gaming. Like sometimes I would watch YouTube videos way longer than I meant to, or I would like binge on like a fantasy book. But I never get like I never broke my red line. And I continue to work hard in life. And then things continue to go really well, like in my career, in my life. I kept working the steps. And I remember like on step four, I had like literally by the time we were done, I had 20 pages of inventory, which I thought was insane. I never thought I'd write that much in my life. Yeah, I mean, like now, like, fast forward like 7, 8 months, and I got to move to a new place. I'm like living living in the city again, have my own place, have a great job. I knew there was something special happened when I went to go buy shower curtains for my like new apartment. And I was like so happy and excited about buying shower curtains. That would never happen like while I was gaming, but like I was like so happy with my little shower curtains. And yeah, I just like learning to have more forgiveness and grace for myself. And I'm not actually completely done with step 20 pages of inventory. I'm at step 9 right now, and in the process of trying to make amends and really trying to kind of face like the mistakes I made in the past and just like I'm more like in that real way too. And it's really scared and it's really tough to actually confront the mistakes and the errors and like just for accurate like the sins and mistakes I made in the past, and making resolutions in just the real world with those people. And so that's what I'm working through right now. But what's funny is like the difference between like effort and running away from it. Like just even when I was back in step one, like when I'm earnestly working towards step 9 and I want to make progress in it and do those things are better. They still like they're not easy, but they're better. But when I'm like trying to run away from it, when I'm trying not to do it, that's when I feel like the greater urge to play games, the better like greater urge to escape. So even though I'm like not successful yet in step 9, as long as I want to make the effort in step 9, as long as I have the willingness to do step 9, things are getting better. And when I'm running away from it, I feel like I'm running toward like a relapse. Yep. So at that point, I'm close to 400 days, and still have a lot more recovery to do. But things are way better than they were a year ago. And anyway, I've already talked longer than I think I was supposed to talk. So